I watched him laugh, raising his glass, completely proud and blind, while everyone around him cheered. No one knew the secret I carried, a truth that could destroy everything he thought he had. My heart pounded as I clutched the letter in my hand, feeling its weight, knowing that once I spoke, nothing could ever go back to how it was. The room glittered with decorations, flowers in every corner, and soft golden lights that reflected off the champagne glasses. Guests in fancy dresses and sharp suits mingled, laughing and complimenting Ryan on how perfect he seemed. Melissa, my sister, floated through the crowd, her smile wide, completely unaware that her happiness was built on lies. I took a deep breath and tried to calm my shaking hand. I had spent weeks deciding if I should do this. I loved my sister, and it killed me to know she was being deceived. But I couldn't stand by and watch her marry a man who had betrayed her in the cruelest way. My loyalty to her outweighed the fear, and I knew I had to act. Ryan, looking confident and charming, went around the room, joking and making everyone laugh. He had no idea that tonight would not be a celebration for him. It would be the night his lies caught up to him. I remembered all the times he had pretended to care, the promises he made, and the trust one had once put in him. It hurt more than I could explain. I moved carefully through the crowd, keeping my eyes on him. Everyone was distracted by the food, the music, and the endless congratulations. It gave me a small sense of control, knowing that when I finally revealed the truth, the shock would be absolute. I thought about my words, the exact way I would say them, so that no one could ignore or twist them. Every smile around me felt fake, every cheer hollow. I realized that the people here were celebrating a life built on lies, and I held the power to change it all in a single moment. My stomach churned, but my mind was clear. I wasn't doing this for revenge out of anger. I was doing it for the truth, for my sister, for justice. As I took my place near the center of the room, I felt my courage grow. The letter burned in my hand, ready to be unfolded, ready to expose what Ryan had tried so hard to hide. For the first time that evening, I felt calm. The truth would speak for itself, and when it did, nothing could ever be the same again. Tonight, I wasn't just an observer. I was the voice that would shatter the illusion, the one who would finally make the world see him as he really was. And deep down, I knew that once I stepped forward, there would be no turning back. Laura and Ryan had been inseparable since they were kids. They grew up on the same street, went to the same schools, and shared every secret they had. He was like the brother she never had. They laughed together, cried together, and trusted each other completely. Nothing seemed like it could ever break that bond. But everything started to change when Melissa came into Ryan's life. She was charming, confident, and knew exactly how to catch his attention. Slowly, Ryan began to spend more time with her, and the easy closeness he had with Laura started to fade. Laura watched from the sidelines, heart sinking, but she convinced herself it was just a phase. He was happy, and that mattered. The truth hit Laura like a punch she didn't see coming. She discovered that Ryan had been unfaithful, and worse, the affair had led to a baby. The woman had reached out to her, desperate, hoping someone close to Ryan would know the truth. Laura's world turned upside down. Everything she thought she knew about her friend, about her sister's future, felt like it was built on lies. Laura struggled with what to do. She knew her sister didn't deserve this, didn't deserve to be blindsided by such a devastating betrayal. But revealing it wasn't simple. Ryan had a way of charming everyone, and Laura knew some people might not believe her if she spoke out of anger. Every day she wrestled with guilt, watching her sister plan a life with a man who was not worthy of her trust. At the same time, Laura felt anger simmering under her calm exterior. Ryan had betrayed not just Melissa, but her too, the person who had trusted him completely. She couldn't forget the nights she had confided in him, shared her fears, and believed he would never hurt those she cared about. The betrayal cut deep, sharper than she had imagined. As the engagement party approached, Laura's mind worked tirelessly. She knew the moment had to be perfect. It wasn't just about exposing Ryan. It was about ensuring the truth was undeniable, and that her sister would finally see the man she had chosen for what he really was. She planned every detail, rehearsed her words, and prepared herself for the storm that would follow. Each day, Laura felt the tension grow inside her. She saw the happiness in her sister's eyes, completely unaware of the dark secret lurking just beneath the surface. That only strengthened her resolve. The longer she waited, the more she realized that the right time wasn't about her comfort. It was about the impact the truth would have. Laura knew that when she finally stepped forward, the betrayal would be revealed in a way that no one could ignore. She wasn't acting on impulse. Every thought, every move was calculated. It was about justice, about protecting her sister, and finally holding Ryan accountable for the lies he had hidden for so long. The stage was set, and she was ready. Laura's mind was a storm of emotions she could hardly control. Anger pulsed through her veins every time she thought about Ryan smiling, proud and unsuspecting, while hiding a secret that could ruin so many lives. Sadness followed closely behind, sadness for her sister, for the trust that had been broken, and for the friendship she had lost. Betrayal cut deeper than she ever imagined, leaving her restless and sleepless at night. She watched him that evening, moving confidently among the guests, laughing easily, and joking as if the world belonged to him. Ryan was charming, as always, bragging to friends and family about how he was the perfect fiancé, how he had everything under control, and how happy Melissa was because of him. Every word he spoke made Laura's stomach twist. She wanted to shout at everyone, to expose the truth immediately, but she stayed silent, letting the tension build. Memories flooded back. Countless nights when she had tried to warn him about honesty, about the importance of telling the truth before it was too late. She remembered the long talks, the arguments, the tears she had shed for a friend she once trusted completely. Now, all those warnings seemed wasted. He had chosen lies over honesty, and the consequences were coming due, whether he realized it or not. Laura's heart ached, but her mind grew sharper. She understood that anger alone wouldn't make the impact she wanted. She had to be patient, precise, and calculated. She began to form a plan in her mind, imagining the moment she would step forward and let the truth do the work she could not. The thought gave her a strange sense of control, a quiet power she hadn't felt in weeks. If he can't be honest, she thought, I'll make sure the truth speaks louder than his lies. That simple idea strengthened her resolve. It wasn't about revenge in the cruel sense. It was about justice. It was about exposing him in a way that left no room for excuses, that finally revealed his betrayal to everyone who believed in him. As the evening went on, Laura felt her emotions shifting. Anger and sadness were still there, but they were tempered with clarity. She knew the timing had to be perfect. The longer she waited, the more impact the revelation would have. She could feel the adrenaline rising, a mixture of fear and determination, knowing that in a few hours, nothing would be the same. Her heart pounded as she rehearsed the moment in her mind, imagining Ryan's shock, Melissa's confusion, and the silence that would follow. Laura's turmoil hadn't faded. It had transformed into focus. She was ready. The truth would speak, and this time, she would make sure it was heard. The hall was stunning, more luxurious than anything Laura had ever seen. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, casting warm, golden light over the polished floor. Tables were decorated with fresh flowers and fine china, and the soft music in the background mixed with laughter and chatter. Champagne flowed freely, and guests moved gracefully in designer dresses and sharp suits, all celebrating what they thought was a perfect engagement. Laura stepped inside, her hands clasped tightly at her sides, trying to keep her expression calm. Her heart, however, was racing like a drumbeat in her chest. Every detail of the room, every laughing face, reminded her of what was at stake. This was more than a party. It was the stage for the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when the truth would finally be revealed. She spotted Ryan almost immediately. He was in the center of the room, laughing loudly, telling a story that had everyone hanging on his every word. Guests clapped and cheered as if he were the hero of the night. He radiated confidence, completely unaware that the illusion of his perfect life was about to crumble. Laura felt a pang of disgust at how easily he could charm people, how blind everyone was to the lies he had built around himself. As she moved carefully through the crowd, Laura's thoughts kept returning to the secret she carried. The letter in her hand burned slightly against her palm, reminding her of the weight of the truth. She thought about the nights she had spent agonizing over whether to act, and how each passing day had made her more certain that tonight was the night. Her resolve hardened with every step she took. She paused for a moment near the edge of the room, taking in the scene. The laughter, the music, the clinking of glasses, it all contrasted sharply with the tension coiling in her chest. In that moment, Laura felt the power of the secret she held. The lives in this room were built on lies, and she had the key to exposing them. Laura reminded herself to stay calm, to choose her words carefully. She imagined the shock on Ryan's face, the confusion in Melissa's eyes, the silence that would fall over the crowd. This was her moment, the moment she had been preparing for, the moment that would make everything clear. Her heart pounded, but she felt ready. The party continued around her, oblivious to the storm waiting to break. Every cheer and toast pushed her closer to the edge, reminding her that the perfect time to speak had finally come. Laura took a steadying breath, letting the anticipation sharpen her focus. Tonight, the celebration was more than a party. It was a stage, and she was about to step into the center. The truth was in her hands, and when she revealed it, nothing in this room would ever be the same again. Laura moved quietly to a spot near the center of the room, pretending to chat with a few guests while keeping her eyes on Ryan. She knew the right moment had to be perfect. Too early, and it might not land. Too late, and the chance could be lost. Her heart pounded as she waited, each passing second tightening the coil of tension inside her. Guests continued to mingle, complimenting Ryan on how charming he was, how perfect a fiancé he seemed, and how lucky Melissa was. Their praise felt like salt in her wound, making her hands clench and her throat tighten. She bit back tears and swallowed the anger that threatened to spill over. Every smile and laugh around her was a reminder of the lies he had hidden and the trust he had broken. The clinking of glasses, soft music, and bursts of laughter echoed through the hall, filling the air with celebration. To everyone else, it was a happy, perfect night. To Laura, it was the calm before the storm. She could almost hear the contrast between the joy around her and the storm of truth ready to strike, a storm that would leave no room for pretense. Ryan stepped onto a small platform, raising his glass to get everyone's attention. He smiled confidently and began his self-congratulatory speech, talking about love, trust, and the life he promised Melissa. He looked proud, convinced that everyone believed in the image he had created. Laura felt a cold surge of determination. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. She rehearsed the words in her head, picturing how the room would go silent, how faces would change from joy to shock, and how the truth would finally land where it needed to. Every laugh, every toast, every cheerful note of the music only sharpened her focus. The contrast between the festive atmosphere and the tension coiling in her chest made her feel both terrified and powerful at the same time. Her palms felt sweaty, but she kept her posture straight and her voice ready. She watched Ryan scan the room, proud and oblivious, unaware that his perfect world was about to shatter. Laura's pulse raced, but her mind was clear. This wasn't about anger anymore. It was about justice, about giving Melissa the chance to see the man she loved for who he truly was. The room seemed to move in slow motion around her. Glasses clinked, laughter rang, music floated softly in the background, and Ryan continued speaking, all while Laura held the key to ending the illusion. She could feel every heartbeat echoing in her chest, reminding her that once she spoke, nothing would be the same. With a deep breath, she stepped closer to the edge of the platform, ready to reveal everything. The suspense built like a pressure inside her, each second stretching longer, until the moment when silence and truth would take over, leaving no space for lies to survive. Laura took a slow, steady step forward, drawing the attention of the room without hesitation. Her voice, calm but sharp, cut through the music and chatter, making everyone turn toward her. The energy shifted instantly. Laughter and conversation faded as people sensed something serious was about to happen. "I can't stay silent anymore," she began, her eyes locked on Ryan. "Everyone here deserves to know the truth. The baby Ryan has been talking about, it's not his. He cheated, and he lied to all of you, to my sister, and to himself. Melissa, you were never told the truth, and you have a right to know it now." A shocked murmur ran through the crowd, growing louder as the weight of her words sank in. Guests froze, glasses halfway to their lips, eyes wide with disbelief. Some gasped audibly, unable to process what they were hearing. The music seemed to vanish, replaced by stunned silence. Ryan's confident smile faltered. He opened his mouth, stumbling over his words, trying to defend himself, but it was too late. Laura held the letter in her hand, the undeniable proof of his betrayal. The evidence was clear, precise, and impossible to ignore. Every lie he had told crumbled instantly under the harsh light of truth. Melissa's face drained of color. Her eyes widened in shock, her hands trembling slightly as she realized not only that Ryan had been unfaithful, but that the betrayal had been exposed so publicly. The joy she had felt just moments ago vanished, replaced with a mix of confusion, anger, and heartbreak. She looked at Ryan, her expression asking questions that words couldn't capture, and he had no answers to give. Around the room, whispers spread like wildfire. Some guests looked angry, some horrified, and others simply silent, stunned by the revelation. The perfect image Ryan had built for himself shattered in front of everyone, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. Laura felt a quiet satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from finally seeing the truth come to light, from justice being served in the only way that mattered. Ryan tried to speak again, stammering excuses and half-truths, but no one listened. The evidence was right there, and Laura had delivered it with precision. The room no longer held celebration. It held the aftermath of betrayal, and Ryan could feel the weight of everyone's judgment pressing down on him. Melissa took a step back, her face pale and her voice shaking as she whispered, "How could you?" Laura watched silently, knowing that the worst of the deception was now behind them. She had done what needed to be done, revealing the truth without hesitation, giving her sister a chance to face reality and make her own decisions moving forward. In that moment, Laura realized that the power of truth was stronger than any lie, stronger than charm or deception. The reveal had changed everything, and there was no turning back. Ryan's world had collapsed, and Melissa's eyes opened to the reality she deserved to see, all because Laura had stepped forward and refused to stay silent. The room was in chaos. Guests whispered urgently to one another, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others looking at Laura with admiration. A few were clearly angry at Ryan, while some tried to comfort Melissa, who was struggling to process everything. The celebration had transformed into a scene of tension and shock. Ryan's face was pale, and he looked desperate. He opened his mouth to explain, to defend himself, but his words fell flat. No one listened. The evidence Laura had presented left no room for excuses, and his charm no longer held any power. Every attempt he made to regain control only made him look smaller in front of everyone. Melissa turned to him, her hands trembling, eyes wide with pain and disbelief. "How could you do this to me?" she asked, her voice shaking but strong with emotion. The hurt in her tone was raw, a mix of humiliation, betrayal, and heartbreak that could not be ignored. She had believed in him completely, trusted him with her life, and now she was left to face the truth that he had lied to her in the worst way possible. Around them, people continued to murmur and stare. Some shook their heads in disapproval, some muttered that they had always suspected something was wrong, and others simply stayed silent, unsure how to react. The energy in the room had shifted entirely, the celebration replaced by tension and uncomfortable silence. Laura stood quietly, almost like she was watching from a distance. Her heart was still racing, but her face remained calm. She didn't need to shout or argue. She didn't need to plead for people to see the truth. She had delivered it clearly, and now she watched as it landed, as the impact settled into the room. This was her revenge, not in anger, but in precision, the truth hitting harder than any outburst could. Ryan stumbled back, shoulders slumping, realizing that his lies had been exposed to everyone he cared about. His attempts to explain only made him look guilty, and the guests' eyes bore into him, full of judgment and disbelief. He looked around helplessly, searching for someone to take his side, but no one stepped forward. The charm and confidence he had relied on for so long had vanished in an instant. Melissa, still reeling, took a step away from him, pulling herself together as best she could. Her expression was a mix of sorrow and anger, but also a quiet strength beginning to emerge. She no longer looked like the woman who had been blinded by love. She was starting to see the reality clearly. Laura took a deep breath, letting the moment settle. She had wanted this to happen without unnecessary chaos, without violence or yelling. Standing calm in the middle of the storm, she watched the truth do what she never could with anger alone. Ryan's facade was gone, and justice, in its quiet and powerful way, had been served. Laura stood quietly, watching her sister collapse into tears, the weight of betrayal finally sinking in. Melissa's sobs were heart-wrenching, but Laura also saw something else, a sense of clarity beginning to form behind the tears. The truth, as painful as it was, had lifted the veil off a toxic relationship. For the first time, Melissa could see Ryan for who he truly was, and that realization, as devastating as it felt, carried a strange kind of freedom. Laura felt her own emotions rise to the surface. There was still anger, a burning frustration at Ryan's lies and betrayal, but it was mixed with relief. Relief that her sister now had the truth, that she had acted before things went even further. Relief that the burden she had carried for weeks, the secret, the knowledge of Ryan's deception, was finally gone. Ryan's face showed complete humiliation. He avoided eye contact, shoulders slumped, trying in vain to reclaim any dignity. The guests who had once applauded him now looked at him with disappointment and disbelief. He muttered a few words, but no one listened. With every step he took toward the exit, it became clear that his carefully built image had crumbled completely. He left the party quietly, but the weight of shame followed him like a shadow, impossible to shake. Around Laura and Melissa, the room slowly shifted from shock to quiet admiration. Guests whispered to each other about Laura's courage, some even nodding their approval. They understood that what she had done wasn't cruel or vengeful for its own sake. She had acted out of love and protection for her sister, making sure Melissa wouldn't continue down a path built on lies. The respect in their eyes, though unspoken, gave Laura a quiet sense of validation. Melissa, still shaking, looked at Laura and whispered, "Thank you for telling me. I don't know if I could have faced this on my own." Laura reached out and held her sister's hand, offering comfort and support. In that moment, words weren't necessary. The bond between them, strengthened through the pain and truth, spoke louder than anything else. Laura took a step back and allowed herself a deep breath. She had stayed calm, precise, and honest, and it had made all the difference. The anger, sadness, and tension that had haunted her were now mingled with a sense of closure. She realized that justice didn't always have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes, it was simply giving the truth its chance to be heard. For Laura, the party was over, but the lessons remained. She had confronted betrayal, stood up for her sister, and watched as lies fell away, leaving only clarity. In that moment, she felt a mix of exhaustion, relief, and quiet satisfaction, knowing that the hardest thing she had done was also the right thing. The truth had set everyone free in its own way, and Laura finally allowed herself to feel the calm after the storm. Laura stepped away from the center of the room, moving quietly through the crowd. The party still buzzed with murmurs and whispers, a mixture of shock, anger, and admiration, but she didn't look back. The chaos she left behind didn't touch her. Every step she took felt purposeful, as if each footfall carried her further from lies and closer to clarity. Outside, the cool night air greeted her, sharp and refreshing. She paused for a moment, letting the tension drain from her shoulders. The city lights shimmered in the distance, and for the first time that evening, Laura felt a sense of calm settle over her. The weight she had carried, the secret, the fear, the anger, was finally gone. As she walked down the quiet street, she reflected on everything that had happened. Betrayal, she realized, was always more painful when trust had been absolute. But revenge didn't need to be violent or cruel. Truth alone could carry its own power. By revealing Ryan's lies, she hadn't just exposed him. She had restored honesty, protected her sister, and reclaimed her own sense of justice. Laura allowed herself to acknowledge her feelings fully. Anger still lingered, but it was tempered by relief. Sadness remained, softened by the knowledge that she had done the right thing. Every step forward felt lighter than the last, a reminder that strength often comes not from confrontation, but from standing firm in what is right. Her mind wandered to the future. Melissa would have to rebuild her life, and Laura knew she would be there to support her. But for herself, too, a new path was opening. The lessons of trust, betrayal, and honesty would guide her going forward. She felt a quiet determination forming, a resolve to live with clarity, integrity, and strength, no longer weighed down by secrets or lies. The sounds of the city, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional laughter of strangers, felt different tonight. They were no longer background noise to a life filled with tension and deception. They were the soundtrack of a new beginning, a reminder that the world moved on, and so could she. Laura's pace slowed as she reached a quiet park, moonlight spilling across the pavement. She stopped and looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath. The storm of the party, the revelations, and the heartbreak had passed. In its place, she felt a rare sense of peace. She had acted with courage, honesty, and love, and that choice had freed not only her sister but herself as well. With one last glance at the city skyline, Laura turned and walked forward, letting the night guide her. Every step felt lighter, every breath freer. The past, with all its betrayals and lies, was behind her. Ahead lay a life she could shape with truth, strength, and clarity. And for the first time in a long while, she felt ready for it. Laura slid into her car, the engine humming softly as she pulled out of the driveway. The night felt quiet, almost peaceful, and for the first time in weeks, she felt lighter. The burden of the secret she had carried, the tension and fear of what might happen if she spoke, was finally gone. She exhaled deeply, letting the cool night air fill her lungs as the city lights passed by. Driving through the empty streets, Laura thought about her sister. Melissa had been shocked and hurt, yes, but over time, she came to understand why Laura had acted the way she did. The anger faded, replaced with gratitude. Melissa eventually forgave her, not just for speaking the truth in public, but for having the courage to protect her from continuing down a path built on lies. Laura knew their bond was stronger now, forged through honesty and trust, even in the hardest moments. Ryan, on the other hand, had been left to face the consequences of his choices. The lies he had spun, the betrayal he had committed, were now fully exposed. No charm, no excuses could undo what had happened. He had lost respect, trust, and the life he thought he controlled. Laura felt a quiet satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from knowing that truth had finally caught up with him. Justice had been served in the most powerful way, without anger, without violence, simply through honesty. As she drove, Laura reflected on the lessons the experience had taught her. Life didn't always require revenge in dramatic ways. Sometimes the strongest action was restraint, patience, and letting the truth speak for itself. She realized that exposing Ryan's lies had done more than just punish him. It had freed her sister, restored honesty, and given her own conscience peace. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint sounds of the city, distant car horns, the soft hum of streetlights, the occasional laugh from a passing group of people. It all felt normal, yet profoundly different to Laura. Everything had changed, relationships, trust, and the lives of everyone involved. But there was a clarity now, a sense that the right choice had been made, even if it had been painful. Laura allowed herself a small smile. She had acted with courage and integrity, and that choice would guide her going forward. She knew she would carry the memory of the night, the revelation, and the emotions, but it would no longer weigh her down. She was free to move forward, stronger and wiser, with the knowledge that truth, above all else, could shape outcomes far more powerfully than lies or deception ever could. And in her heart, Laura held a thought that would stay with her long after the party ended. Sometimes the strongest revenge is simply letting truth do its work. With that, she drove on, leaving the past behind and embracing the promise of a future built on honesty, strength, and clarity.